What's going on? This is the Fight Guy. I'll tell you exactly what's going on. There's literal shit and figurative shit flying around all over the UFC right now, whether it is down in Mexico City or up in Kansas City. A lot of cities are dealing with some form of shit. We're going to get into all of it. Jamahal Hill looks like he's injured. He may not be able to fight Khalil Roundtree at UFC Kansas City in about a month and a half. May 10th, I believe the date is. Lupi Godinez had to poop during her fight, her decision win at UFC Mexico City over the weekend. It looks like some other fighters were dealing with stomach sicknesses as well. We're going to get into all of that. And then finally, I'm going to do a quick breakdown of the entire card. I almost went perfect on my predictions. I know I only did my video on Saturday morning for the main card. But if you follow me on X, like I tell you guys to do every week, twice a week, you'd have my predictions. I swept the prelims easy. I think it's the second week in a row where I've guessed almost every fight right on the prelims. I don't know. Definitely 313 I nailed the prelims. Missed 2 on the main card. We'll end on that breakdown. But first, Jamahal Hill apparently is out from his fight at UFC Kansas City with Khalil Roundtree.
Also, it'll be another way. It don't matter. You just got to put some meat in their face. Pause.
What's for Renato Moicano?
What do we do now? What do we do now? First off, what's next for Jamahal Hill? All right, because it seems like, look, he's coming off of a knockout loss to Jiri Prochazka. Very close fight. He took a lot of damage, got knocked out cold. Before that, rewind. Getting knocked out at UFC 300 by Alex Pereira. Jamahal Hill's slipping. He's on a bit of a slope right now, and he doesn't know how to ski. I mean, a torn Achilles, coming back from that was already sketchy. Then you lose both your fights following that via knockout. And now I think this is a different type of injury on his leg. I don't believe it is the same Achilles or that is an Achilles issue, period. Not sure the details of it, so I'm not going to speculate. Not even 100% certain that he's going to be out of the fight. Rumors spreading that he's dealing with a bit of an injury. So might be an easy out for Jamahal Hill. Who do we give Khalil to fight? Does he still headline the card? Do we have to completely rebuild the main event for this card? Honestly, I think that this works out in the fans' favor. I think it works out in Khalil's. I mean, I think Hill would have been an easy win for Roundtree. But who do we give Khalil Roundtree next? Jiri Prochazka for the number one contender, hands down, winner fights for the belt next after Pereira? This is the fight to make. There's really no other. You could do Carlos Ulberg. Alrighty, just coming off of a split decision win against Jan. I don't know that he's rested up from those injuries. I don't know that he's willing to come back in a month's notice to fight for the number one contender spot. Great opportunity for Carlos, though. But Jiri Prochazka, this would be an amazing fight. I would really love it. It would be a bloody war, just like whenever Roundtree fought Alex. Not saying it's going to go the same way, but both these guys can wear a lot of damage, and that's what the fans are going to get. Next topic. It appears we've had some fighters with stomach issues at UFC Mexico City over the past weekend. Lupi Godinez, even during her fight, she says that she had to take a shit. I think I have the video right here. I doubt you guys will hear it, but she says, "Holy fuck, I need a poop." Stereotypes might be mean sometimes, but they're true for the most part. And what do people say about Mexican food? It makes you have to shit. Even if you're Mexican, even Joe Pyfer was out of his fight because he had sickness due to altitude sickness. I don't know if it was something that he ate. He said something about food poisoning, I think, yesterday. I don't know what's going on with that guy. He says he's never going to fight outside of the U.S. again. You're kind of not in a position to decide that, but I digress. This is the video of Joe Pyfer. I'm not going to play it. I don't know if the audio is going to show up correctly. Plus, you guys have probably seen it. But I do have a little bone to pick with this MMA Joey guy. I don't know what his deal is. And he says this: next time, man up and fight the super favorable matchup you were given instead of being a beta. Reminder, the guy with the crooked profile picture that commented this, you can see if you're OCD, this will bother you on the right, that white line. So it's not, his profile picture is not even straight. So how can you take this guy seriously? And this is what he looks like. MMA Joey. Imagine this is what your body looks like and you're going to call Joe Pyfer a beta? Come on, man. Come on, man. Not much else to say about that. It seems that there was some, I don't know, the altitude, the food. Be professionals at the end of the day. I don't know. Even DC said he had to go to the bathroom more times during the prelims than he's ever had to go in his entire life. I don't know if that's the flex that he thinks it is, DC, but yeah, some funky stuff. Some literal shit going on in the UFC. Some figurative shit going on in Kansas City. It's a mess right now, but that's why we're going to get into the full card breakdown. I'm going to make this quick for you guys. I want to keep my videos around 15 minutes. I think that's fair. First fight on the prelims, we had Markel Medeiros to win this fight, which he did, versus Austin Hubbard. Medeiros and Hubbard traded blows. It was a pretty close fight, especially on paper. If you look at this at first glance, you're like, oh, Austin Hubbard, he landed 62 strikes and 7.5 minutes of control time. How did he not win this fight? Austin Hubbard did not do shit with that control time. I had my computer up while I was watching the fights. I was taking a little bit of notes, but mostly I was watching the live stats. Austin Hubbard did not land a single significant strike with all 7 minutes and 30 seconds of control time. Can you believe that? Markel Medeiros landed way harder shots, doubled the significant strikes to Austin Hubbard, and he had a minute and a half of control time himself. He was doing more work to the legs, landed way more strikes to the head, and just Austin Hubbard did not use his control time effectively. Lost that fight 29-28. That's a good score. Austin Hubbard's still tough. I think he's a good gatekeeper. He's good to keep around in the lightweight division. Markel needs more development. So, 10-1, not a bad record, but give him a couple bottom feeders right outside the rankings in lightweight, because that's a stacked division. Next fight, Jamahal Emmers versus Gabriel Miranda. Emmers survived an early takedown by Miranda, then flattened Miranda with punches for a TKO at 4:06 of round one. It was a bounce back finish from Emmers. If you saw the very beginning of the fight, it looked like, oh man, it's going to be one of these. But now Emmers, 2 knockdowns, win by TKO on the ground. Beautiful win for Jamahal Emmers. From here on out, I pretty much went with every single Mexican to win their fight, which they did except for Rodriguez, I believe. So yeah, I nailed the predictions. As you guys can see again, I got every single prelim one correct, and I did miss out on the Rodriguez. But back to the breakdown. Next fight, we had Rafa Garcia versus Vink Pichel. Vink Pichel is hilarious on X. If you guys don't follow him, he doesn't actually post jokes, but he's just very political, and it's just funny to me. Rafa Garcia, it was a great fight. 2 judges did give Rafa Garcia a 30-27 victory. I thought it was a 29-28. I thought Vink had round 2, but the Mexican judges were a little bit biased. That was what reports were saying. There were no robberies. Let's not get it twisted. There was not a single robbery on this card. Anybody that says so, you need to not only unfollow them, but block their account, because they are ruining the sport. It's already the sport already has enough problems. The sport's already, a single mom with 5 kids. She's got to figure some shit out. But we don't need another kid screaming. We don't need to adopt one, at least. Okay? We're getting off topic. Rafa Garcia beat Vink Pichel's ass pretty much in rounds 1 and 3. It was a somewhat close fight, but especially being in Mexico City, you got to do more than make the rounds close. Vink, great win for Rafa Garcia. We're 3 for 3. Moving on to the next fight, Lupi Godinez. Lupi Godinez versus Julia Palestri. This was a good fight. Lupi, she won the rounds that she needed to win. 7.5 minutes of control time. Actually did something with her control time. I believe she had a couple submission attempts. I'm not remembering clearly. But yeah, it was a great fight for Lupi, despite her having to shit. I'll put the video right here.
Then I went to sleep, and then my stomach still not feel great, and I was having the shits, I guess, all of that Friday day, and then overnight, and then in the morning, and then before coming out of the dressing room to go to the fight, when I went to change again, and then I'm like, oh wow, okay.
From Ariel. But it is reported from Poopy Loopy herself that she probably took over a dozen shits within the 24-hour window to the fight, which, you know, I understand weight cuts. I understand Mexican food, but weight cuts and Mexican food together don't mix well. Loopy wasn't the only one dealing with sickness or stomach issues. Joe Pyfer, as you guys may have seen, I think I have it right here. Yeah, Joe Pyfer, you know, I'm not going to play the video. The audio is not going to show right, but basically, you know, he said, I did everything I was supposed to do. I was feeling perfectly fine. I went down there to acclimate. I slept in a tent, you know, did this, did that. I hunted a boar in the woods with a stick. He did everything he was supposed to do, but he just wasn't feeling good right before the fight. Altitude, maybe. Mexican food, maybe. Both, definitely. Joe Pyfer did say that he was never going to go and fight outside the U.S. again. I don't think he is at the level where he gets to decide that. If you go back and watch this guy's interviews, who I like, he talked about being homeless at 15 and having to do this and having to do that, having a tough life, which I'm not saying isn't true. Not saying, you know, he's not exaggerating that a little bit. But if the UFC says, hey, buddy, you're fighting in Mexico in September, he's going to say, okay, Dana. But this MMA Joey guy is a joke. First of all, his profile picture isn't even center. You can see the white on the right side of it. It looks like shit. But MMA Joey talks to Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer is a professional UFC fighter. MMA Joey, next time, man up and fight the super favorable matchup you were given instead of being a beta. MMA Joey on Twitter, not face-to-face. This is something that he did say on Twitter. Reminder, this is what MMA Joey looks like. All right, he is the only MMA UFC content creator that I'm aware of, outside of the MMA guru, possibly, who's got literal tits. Whatever. We're going to move on. You know, we're going to move on from this. We're going to get back, you know, to the breakdown, but there was some sickness and some shits going on in Mexico City. Even Daniel Cormier said it was the most bathroom breaks he's ever taken in a preliminary card in his entire life. Great win for Lupe Godinez. We move on to the next fight. Next fight, we had Christian Rodriguez versus Meliquizel Costa. If you guys followed me on X, man, you would know that I picked Costa to win this fight. He was one of my only two underdog picks. The only underdog pick I was actually very confident in. I'm not going to let myself go, but just saying Costa against Feely in UFC Seattle was absolutely an amazing performance. He looked good on his feet. Remember, he's an experienced professional Muay Thai fighter, I believe. All right, his record is better than 22-7. A lot of fighters, you look at their record, they're 10-1, 12-2, 13-1. And you look into the history of the people that they fought, and you realize that most of these fighters have not ever had a win before, let alone having like 1-4, 1-5 losses. Costa's not one of those guys. He is a tough, you know, pull yourself up from the bootstraps type of guy. You know, worked his way into the UFC, beat Andre Feely in his hometown at UFC Seattle in front of his mom on his mom's birthday. Woo! Last fight on the prelims. Jose Daniel Medina versus Atiba Gasher. If that's how you say his name, I don't remember. I need to learn it, though, because this guy has a future in the UFC. He's going to be a serious problem. He looks like what I could only describe as Francis Ngannou's left nut. This guy punches like a train off the tracks. It was a quick fight. He blitzed Medina with punches and a knee, scored a knockout. 332 around one. Very excited to see, you know, another fucking stud in the middleweight division. Excited to see who they give him next. All right. Was wrong about this one. Ronaldo Rodriguez versus Kevin Borjas. I thought Ronaldo had a little bit more than he did. If you saw the video on Friday, I told you guys that Ronaldo Rodriguez, man, he would have the energy, the support from the crowd behind him, and that was going to fuel and push him. That was bullshit. It's not what happened. Ronaldo Rodriguez, he looked a little bit desperate out there. Two judges had this 30-27. One judge had it 29-28. I think you could score it either way. I don't really remember a clear round that Ronaldo won. Maybe a close round 2. But yeah, Kevin Borjas really put it on him, scoring a knockdown, stuffing pretty much all of Rodriguez's takedown attempts. It was it was a dominant showing to snap Borjas' 2-fight losing streak. All right, I thought that was going to carry on, and Kevin Borjas snapped Ronaldo's what I believe is a 7-fight win streak going into the UFC. So I don't know. I'm not really happy with Ronaldo. I think I'm going to go on the record and say that this is a fraud check. This is another fraud check of 2025. Ronaldo is in the car on Instagram right after his fight talking about, like, hey, I'm happy. I'm proud of my performance. I don't like that mentality. I don't like that mentality. I like I'm going to go sit in my room and bang my head against the wall and figure out what went wrong and tear the footage apart, and which I'm sure he's going to do. But yeah, man, you got fraud checked in Mexico City, and you're not even bitter about it. We move on to the next fight, David Martinez versus Simon Oliveira. Martinez overwhelmed Oliveira with strikes, finishing him with a TKO at 4:38 of round 1. Mexican debut, I believe. Is this a debut? He was Contender Series. Another debut win for Mexico. It was a strong card for the Mexicans. It was a strong performance from the Mexicans all around, even up to this point, which they completely capitalized at the end of the main card, which I'll get to in a second. But the UK fans, you gotta take note at what the Mexicans did Saturday night. We move on to the next fight, Raul Rosas Jr. versus Vince Morales. This was a good test for Raul. All right, a lot of people are giving him shit, saying, oh, this win over Vince Morales doesn't mean anything. Stop breathing. Why do some of you people want to voice your opinions? This is crazy. Raul Rosas, almost 10 complete minutes of control time, almost had a couple nasty submissions, almost got submitted himself. But that damn chin that we all make fun of, in good faith, protected him from what I believe was a Darce choke or an Anaconda choke. I'm not remembering it clearly. Vince almost had the submission, but what really stopped him from getting the submission is he was more against the neck muscle instead of the artery in the neck, which is what you need to cut the blood flow and make the choke successful. Otherwise, if you're on the muscle, it's got to be a crank, and you don't crank with a Darce, really. Not many that I've seen. Raul Rosas Jr. gets it done. He doesn't get the submission win like I thought he would, but he still made mama proud, and he gets to enjoy that Mexican food that's making everybody sick. We move on to the next fight, Edgar Cherez versus CJ Vergara, getting a sweet round 1 rear naked choke. I was really happy, man, that this guy won. He had a very touchy post-fight interview. It was in Spanish. I don't speak it, but the translator helped me out with that part. Apparently, Edgar needed surgery after his last fight, I believe, at UFC Noche at the Sphere card. I believe that's when he last fought. He needed to get surgery. Apparently, his grandfather, who was like his father who raised him, sold his truck to pay for that surgery so he could come back and fight in the UFC, which was this fight. And his grandfather is no longer with us, and he got a round 1 win. And hopefully a bonus. I didn't see who got the bonuses, but gosh, that is just the stuff that you love to see. Another one of the many reasons I love to watch this sport. CJ Vergara, not much to say about this guy. He got taken down and choked out pretty quick, only landing 6 total strikes. Great win for Edgar, man. Great win. Excited to see who they give him next at flyweight. Maybe a ranked opponent after a round 1 submission win. We move on to the next fight, Manuel Torres versus Drew Dober. This was over quick, man. This was sad to watch. Drew Dober, almost the space of my bingo card hit from this fight, but it did not, because Drew Dober, after he got TKO'd on the ground, he was trying to do like a little ankle snatch or single leg on Manuel Torres, but he just got stuck in neutral, sitting down at the bottom, just eating shots to the head. He had to have eaten 15, 20 strikes while he was down there. Beltran separates them. Drew Dober squares up and tries to fight Manuel Torres again. Almost tried to fight Beltran, which would have been an even bigger mistake than that single leg. But Manuel Torres gets the round 1 knockout win like I said he would. And we move on. We've had all perfect picks at this point. All perfect picks. I have not missed, with just only one. The Rodriguez fight. We move on to the main event. All right, I got this one wrong. All right, I knew Brandon Moreno was looking good against Steve Erceg, but I wanted a little bit of drama. I wanted another upset. All right, I wanted another upset, but this was great. It was great to see Brandon Moreno. He looked fantastic out there. Steve Erceg, 3-0 in the UFC, and then now he's 3-3. All right, he wins his first 3. Now he's on a 3-fight loss. We need to kind of build Steve Erceg back up. I'll get to that in a second. Looking at this on paper, all right, it looks like Erceg won the fight. You're like, oh my God, he landed 30 more significant strikes, 25 more significant strikes than Moreno. What happened here? Steve Erceg won 1 round of that fight, is what happened. Despite him only winning 1 round, he won round 2. It looked a lot better than what the scorecards say it did. Moreno took round 1 pretty easily, just landed the better strikes, disrupted Steve Erceg's boxing more. Round 2, Steve Erceg turned it around. He put it on Brandon Moreno, landed some hard shots. People started to think, oh, the momentum's shifting here. Even the first half of round 3, I'd say the first 2 minutes of round 3, we thought Steve Erceg was going to come back and steal this fight in the championship rounds. It was a consensus on Twitter. A lot of people thought that. Even if you're a biased Moreno fan or Mexican fighter fan, you got to admit, round 2, the first half of round 3, Erceg was really starting to put some things together, and Moreno just shut it down. I mean, this guy is so experienced. He's fought only the best in the world in recent years, and he really showed it. Going into his corner, making adjustments, making the better adjustments, just high fight IQ. Disrupting Erceg in the 3rd round, shutting down his momentum. He stole rounds 4, he stole rounds 5 easily. It was a dominant win for Brandon Moreno. All right, he didn't absolutely beat the dog breaks off of Steve Erceg like what the scorecard may suggest he did, but he did win 4 out of 5 of those rounds. It was a great fight. It was a great card all around. I wasn't disappointed with a single fight, honestly. Every fight was good. The Lupi Godinez fight was a little bit boring, which is good for women's MMA. We're going to go ahead and move on to the bingo card here. Okay. All right, this is the Fight Guy bingo card of 2025. It's starting to fill in dangerously fast. All right, as I've said, I'm going to spar a UFC or professional fighter. I have a couple selections. I will announce that whenever we cross that bridge. And to cross that bridge, we need to get bingo. You're probably wondering which one of these hit during UFC Mexico City on Saturday. There were a couple potential ones. Like I said, fighter almost fought Mike Beltran. That was Drew Dober. But what happened, which one that I checked off, as I mentioned in my breakdown, Edgar Cherez speaking about his grandfather, passing away and selling his truck so he can get surgery. He got emotional. He started to cry in his post-fight interview following his round 1 knockout win. So for that reason, we got to check that box off on the right side there. So as you can see, this thing's really starting to fill in. It's making me a bit nervous. But we'll check back in whenever we hit 4, and we'll go on, control mode from there. Thank you so much for watching The Fight Guy.